So this week I'm going to show you how to make a fairy inspired cake. So this cake right here, and what this tutorial is going to contain is how to build your cake. So structurally, how to ice, how to stack, and how to create sharp edges, just like on this cake. Also how to recreate these little sugar blossoms. So we have different varieties of sugar blossoms throughout, along with sugar leaves, these little toadstools or mushrooms, and then sugar butterflies. So I very much enjoy these types of cakes, fairy cakes. I spent a few of my childhood years growing up in Australia, and it seemed like it was always myself or some of my girlfriends over there were having fairy themed parties, and it was really fun, kind of magical. You know, we'd dress up little tutus, little fairy wings, and we'd have fairy bread, and there'd be a fairy cake, and it was just kind of a little magical birthday party for a little girl. So this is where this inspiration comes from. I thought it'd be fun and kind of gives me good memories of the time I spent over there as a child. So we'll be recreating this exact cake. I'll be showing you how to fill and stack it, how to create sharp edges, and then creating all these sugar components. So sugar butterflies to the toadstools, to the little sugar blossoms all around, creating the little sugar leaves. And not only will we be creating them, but we'll be veining them, softening them. So all of these elements will really add a lot of detail and depth to your cake and really create just a cohesive, really nice showpiece for your party. So let's get started. Okay, so first off, we're gonna start by building our cake. So I'm gonna show you how to slice even layers, also how to fill it with your buttercream that we have ready to go over here, and then just creating a really nice structure for the foundation of your design. I already have some cakes that I baked off yesterday, so they were cool, and I wrapped them and kept them in the refrigerator. So I'm just gonna unwrap these. So we have our 5-inch chocolate rounds ready to go. Other tools we're gonna need is a serrated knife. You could also use a cake leveler, but I just use my knife. It works out just as fine. We'll need our cake board, so make sure you have a cake board. This is a 5-inch round. I'm using an 8-inch board. I like to at least have 2 inches for my board. Just makes for like a nicer design, and it's also going to be more stable if you have more tiers, being able to carry your cake. You're also going to need a little offset spatula. Work with the tools that are appropriate for the size of your cake. Regular spatula. I always use a ruler. This really helps with sharp edges and getting a perfect height for your cake. And then lastly, you're going to need your cake scraper. So this is really nice for icing and those sharp edges, removing any excess buttercream. So first things first, we're gonna start to get our nice even layers of our cake. Always removing these tops, so we want a nice flat cake, not a domed cake. Try to make sure that your layers are uniform. So I tried to get mine at about 1 inch. Okay, so now we have our even layers. So the next step is to get your simple syrup. So we soak all of our cakes in a simple syrup. This ensures moistness of your cake, which is really important if you're working on, say, a multi-tier wedding cake and the design is really detailed, so you need a little bit more time to work with it. So just your simple syrup, and then you just want to soak all of your individual layers. And let that soak in for just a minute. So now we got our cake board. Gonna get a little bit of buttercream, put it on the bottom. This acts like a glue, so it's gonna ensure that your cake stays stuck to your board. Take a bottom, so like a bottom or top of your tier. Put that down first. Make sure it's secure. Take some of your buttercream. And then just start moving and working it in around the board or around the cake. Just letting a little bit go over the edge is fine. That will help with our crumb coat. and just trying to make sure that it stays flat. So our next layer, making sure it lines up. Again, more buttercream. Try to make sure that you're doing the same amount, so we want those nice even layers, even with the icing. It's best to just put your spatula down and try to keep it level and just start working it in, kind of like a Miss America wave, like your little pageant wave, and just start working it around, smoothing it. Okay. And our last piece, again, bottom going on top because it's smooth and it's gonna bring less crumbs into our potential crumb coat. Layers looking nice. And then I'm just gonna smooth the buttercream into the cake, creating our first layer of our crumb coat. Now I'm just gonna take more of the buttercream, always starting on top. My bigger spatula, again, smoothing it, making it flat. So now I'm just gonna scrape off the excess buttercream and just, start to form my nice lines. Some of the crumbs did come up in some of this buttercream, so we don't want to use those or incorporate those back into our bowl. So it's just a little bit. It's typically at the bottom if you went around pretty well. So all of this buttercream's good, so I'll save that buttercream. And now we just want to pull in the sides. Again, we want to make sure that our offset is flat because we really want to achieve a sharp edge. We don't want to be moving our offset like this. We want to be coming straight across. So just gliding it across, removing the excess that's formed like a little lip. And that's really all we have right now, but as we continue to build, we'll get more and more. So now we're gonna pop this in the fridge and we want the buttercream to set, so about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so we just got our cake out of the fridge, and if you wanna just, put your finger, just touch it a little bit, you can see that I'm not really leaving an imprint into the icing, so that means it's already setting pretty well, which is nice, and will hold our nice smooth lines for us. So we're just building on top of our crumb coat, just moving around the cake, keeping it flat. So crumb coat is the first layer that you put on your cake when you're building it. Really what that does is it just ensures that all the crumbs are staying in the first layer so that we're not constantly seeing crumbs throughout our final coats of our cake. Which is great when you do your crumb coat to set it in the fridge so that the crumbs are now stuck, if you will, inside the first layer. So I tend to work from the bottom and then go up, but you could certainly work from the top and go to the bottom. Taking our scraper again, and we're just going to almost like you're patching up a wall. So we're gonna push the buttercream in first, and then we're gonna angle it out, going straight up and down horizontal to remove any excess buttercream in other areas. So facing towards me, kind of pushing it in, turning my turntable, and now going out. Remove the buttercream. This is all still good, no crumbs. Put that back into your bowl. And now we're going to take off the lip again. So again, grabbing your little offset. Again, we just want to go in like this. We do not want to go like this because creating the sharp edges is primarily the hardest thing that we're doing, and going like this would be very counterintuitive. So just taking it in, taking it in. I find it easiest working with the smallest tool for this. So it's looking pretty nice so far. Again, we're going to put this back into the refrigerator so it sets. So another 5 minutes. Okay, so we just got our cake back out of the fridge and now it's really set. We're gonna do our kind of like our final buttercream coat just to make sure it's all really smooth and even. So not really taking a ton of buttercream and putting it onto the cake. Really right now is we're just kind of finishing it. So we already have our nice structure and we're just trying to make everything really clean and sharp. So cleaning off the lip again, just dragging it in. Now the buttercream is gonna set pretty quickly because it's been in the refrigerator for some time and it has some cool layers underneath. So you wanna try and move quickly as you're doing this finishing coat. And then patch up any little lines or rough areas. And then we're gonna set this once more in the fridge, and then we're gonna make the edges really sharp. So now I like to get my ruler and really kind of make these edges sharp. It's also good to check the height of your cake and see how everything's going. And now I'm just smoothing out the top. You could also do this with your scraper, but I like using a ruler. Going super smooth. Okay, we're gonna pop it back in the refrigerator and let it set. So while our cake is setting in the fridge, we're gonna work on some of the design elements for this cake. So this cake is really inspired kind of like a fairy theme. So we're gonna be doing some little sugar blossoms, some little greenery, some toadstools or little mushrooms to garnish our cake. So we're gonna need a few tools to get started. You could certainly use a few different flower cutters if you'd like, but this is a plunger set. So we have something like that. We have a little hydrangea cutter, so I really like doing hydrangeas, very pretty. We have another little plunger, and this is just a 5-petal blossom. And then a regular 5-petal cutter. We're also gonna be doing butterflies, so a little butterfly. Right here is veining, so this is what we're going to vein our flowers with, really just the hydrangea. So this is very realistic, similar veining as an actual hydrangea would have. So we're gonna be using that. You'll also need your Dresden tool. So this is helping with softening the petals after we have cut them out, and also your balling tool. A couple foam pads, because this helps take off some of the pressure when we are doing the softening of our flowers. And then a small cell rolling pin. And we'll also be using our pasta roller. So this helps get the paste very thin when we're rolling it out, which is great for flowers. Really, when we're making sugar flowers or any of these design concepts, especially sugar flowers or anything that we want to hold its shape, we are actually going to be using gum paste. So gum paste is similar to fondant. It's a sugar paste, but what it has in it is a little bit of tylose. So this is going to hold the flowers in the shape that we're going to leave them in. And you always want to condition your gum paste. So I just use a little bit of shortening, put it in my hands, and kind of just knead my gum paste together. You don't want to go super heavy on the shortening because then it gets a little kind of gummy and it will start to separate in ways you don't want it to. So just a little bit, it kind of just gives it a little more give to work with and your working window is a little bit bigger. So just rolling it out thin enough so I can make it go through my pasta roller with ease. So you want to start off at a bigger setting, higher number, and just run your dough through, or your paste through, and then start to go down in numbers, making it thinner. So ideally like a 3 would be nice. So you're just gonna lay your paste out, start with the hydrangea. So just a nice little dusting, making out the flour. Sometimes it's nice to rub your fingers around the edges. It kind of makes nicer cuts. And then just poking it out. So now we've got our little veining mats. We're gonna put one blossom in the center. Sandwich it, press on it so it veins both sides. And then there you have it. Okay, so now that they're all veined. So to form our flowers, you could use these egg formers. So this is like from an egg crate. Apple formers, so depending on the size of your blossom will be dependent on the size of what you're forming it to hold its shape. So I'm just gonna take one of these petals, stick it on my foam little mats, making sure that the petal is laying flat. I'm gonna grab my balling tool, dust it with a little bit of cornstarch, and then I'm just gonna soften the edges. So I'm just going around each little petal, applying pressure. It kind of creates like these little waves, like an actual petal would have. And then I'm gonna set them into my former. Okay, and we're gonna allow those to set. So I just got a little bit of white paste now. Just a little bit of cornstarch. Rub, plunge. And we're not gonna vein these, we're just gonna put it in the palm of our hand with our little balling tool, and we're just gonna rub it around in a circle to soften all the edges. Allow those to set. Since we still have our paste out, I'm gonna just make a butterfly for you. So again, we kind of want to dust it in our cornstarch just so that it comes out easier. And then we're just gonna press it into our paste. Butterfly. To make the butterfly looks like it actually is flying, you can just take some cardboard and make some creases into it, and we're just gonna let our butterflies dry. So now what we're gonna start doing is we're gonna color our little sugar blossoms that we made. So again, this is just gonna make them more realistic, and it's just gonna add a depth of color. So I'm gonna try and keep everything really light, kind of pastel. So I have a couple different petal dusts I'm working with. So I got a little bit of a darker pink, a little bit of a brighter pink, and then a little bit of luster, which is kind of the shimmery petal dust. And then we have a little bit of yellow. So I'm just gonna start coloring these little hydrangeas. So we're gonna incorporate several of these colors. Now, in an actual flower, you have to realize like where the light would be hitting the blossom and where's the most concentrated in color. And so the most concentrated color is always kind of in the center. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part. We get to start decorating. So I just have a little bag of royal icing, so I'm going to use this as a glue. So it's from scratch royal icing. You could also use a pre-mix, but you want to make sure that it's a hard royal icing, that you haven't softened it with extra water or glycerin. So now we're just going to start putting everything together. So really we want to just create a movement on our cakes, so not just sticking stuff wherever we want it to go, but visually what we think is more appealing. And then what I'm going to do is kind of make a crescent moon shape, so kind of concentrate all of our design elements onto this side of the cake, coming down the cake a little bit. And we'll add some of our flowers. And we kind of made a lot, so we have a lot to work with. And then we're just going to pipe little centers onto the flowers. And now for my butterflies. So just finding out where I want to put these on the cake. I think I'll have some on top of the little toadstools. Just putting a little bit of royal icing for a glue. Hold it on for a second. Gonna add one to the cake itself. So almost as if they're like floating up the cake. So now I'm just gonna pipe on a few dots to fill in some of the empty space I have on my cake. It's just again gonna be adding a little bit of texture. So when I pipe little dots, I like to do little clusters, typically in odd numbers versus even. It looks kind of nicer. So there you have it. I had a ton of fun creating this fairy inspired cake for you, and I hope you have just as much fun in your own kitchens. If you have any questions, please comment below. And if you enjoyed seeing tutorials like this and would like to see more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks and stay sweet.